Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna to everybody.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes, Hare Krishna. I hope everybody is doing fine. I am seeing you after, I think, 2 weeks. And I've been extremely tied up on these Friday nights for the past 2 weeks. Someplace traveling and someplace having some very super important meeting going on. So I missed attending and conducting this session. So I'm happy to be here again with all of you. Hari Bol, Hare Krishna. So if can somebody help me stirring up my memory as to where we are, it will help me and maybe help the others too. I think we did I think we were Natad Asti Prithviyam Va Divi Deveshu Va Punaha, text 40 of the 18th chapter. There is no being existing either here or among the demigods in the higher planetary systems, which is free from these three modes of material nature. And then we, I think, also discussed about the characteristics of Brahmana, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. Did we do that? Anybody who knows?
Yes, Maharaj. I think we did till 48.
Till 48, right? We should not do another person's service. Shreyan Swadharmo Vikunaha. Sahajam karma konte ya sadosham api natyajet sarvaramba hi doshena dhumena agni rivavrataha. Every endeavor is covered by some fault, just as fire is covered by smoke. Therefore, one should not give up the work born of his nature or son of Kunti, even if such work is full of fault. You agree with that? Jaya, Nair, you know where we stopped? Or Dr. Sandhya, do you know where we stopped?
I have it.
It's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks off. Yeah, Jaya.
Yeah, I have it at 48 here that we finished.
Okay. So maybe we'll go ahead with that. I also vaguely remember we were somewhere here. Shreyan Swadharmo Vigunaha. That's better to engage in one's own occupation, even though one may perform it imperfectly. Devaki, Sumaki, you remember where we are?
No, Maharaj.
I completely believe what Jaya is saying. I'm going to go ahead with that. At least one person is confident. Okay. Right. I'm just going to ask that we read Sahajam karma konte ya sadosham api natyajet sarvaramba hi doshena dhumena agni ivavrataha. Satyendra Dehiran Desai, please read the translation. Text 48.
Yes, Maharaj. Every endeavor is covered by some fault, just as fire is covered by smoke. Therefore, one should not give up the work born of his nature, O son of Kunti, even if such work is full of fault.
Right. Shalini, can you read the purport, first paragraph?
In conditioned life, all work is contaminated by the material modes of nature. Even if one is a Brahmana, he has to perform sacrifices in which animal killing is necessary. Similarly, a Kshatriya, however pious he may be, has to fight enemies. He cannot avoid it. Similarly, a merchant, however pious he may be, must sometimes hide his profit to stay in business. Or he may sometimes have to do business on the black market. These things are necessary. One cannot avoid them. Similarly, even though a man is a Shudra serving a bad master, he has to carry out the order of the master, even though it should not be done. Despite these flaws, one should continue to carry out his prescribed duties, for they are born out of his own nature. A very
Okay.
nice example.
Okay, fine. I'll ask somebody else also to read. Thank you, Shalini.
Okay, thank you.
Sandhya, Dr. Sandhya, can you go ahead with the next paragraph?
Yes, Maharaj. Whether one is a Kshatriya, a Vaishya, or a Shudra,
A very nice example is given herein. That's the paragraph. We're reading 48 purport.
Okay, Maharaj. A very nice example is given herein. Although fire is pure, still there is smoke. Yet smoke does not make the fire impure. Even though there is smoke in the fire, fire is still considered to be the purest of all elements. If one prefers to give up the work of a Kshatriya and take up the occupation of a Brahmana, he is not assured that in the occupation of a Brahmana there are no unpleasant duties. One may then conclude that in the material world, no one can be completely free from contamination of material nature. This example of fire and smoke is very appropriate in this connection. When in winter time one takes a stone from the fire and sometimes smoke disturbs the eyes, the other parts of the body, but still one must make use of the fire despite disturbing conditions. Similarly, one should not give up his natural occupation because there are some disturbing elements. Rather, one should be determined to serve the Supreme Lord by his occupational duty in Krishna consciousness. That is the perfectional point. When a particular type of occupation is performed for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, all the defects in that particular occupation are purified. When the results of the work are purified, when connected with devotional service, one becomes perfect in seeing the self within, and that is self-realization. Hare Krishna,
Right.
Maharaj.
Thank you. So I think that is self-explanatory. The key point here is that nature means guna, according to the gunas that are affecting you. Guna karma vibhagasha. That Kshatriya, Brahmana, Vaishya, all that together, Shudra, etc., is determined by the material nature's effects on you. It is called swabhava. Swabhavastu pravartate. Everybody will act according to his swabhava, acquired by the influence of the modes on him. Okay, so it's mentioned that according to your nature, you will be a Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and all that. So what works are suitable to such a person under that particular modes are prescribed. You should do that. You should not think that, oh, this is painful here, this is happening here, this is not good here, and try to change your occupation from a Brahmana to that of a Shudra, or from a Shudra to that of a Vaishya, or from a Vaishya to that of a Kshatriya, or from a Kshatriya to that of a Vaishya. Any of these changes are not recommended. Shreyan Swadharmo Vigunaha Paradharmat Swa Anushtitat. Don't try to do another occupation. Simply stick on to your occupation, because anyway, the nature of this world is that Sadosham apina tyajet. Everything. Sahajam karma kaunteya sadosham. Every effort has got some fault by nature. It's a very amazing statement, huh? And I think it gives a lot of solace to all of us. Wow, I am trying to be a perfectionist in doing everything paka. Well, Krishna is saying you can't be. everywhere there is going to be some fault. Well, the Germans may not like this at all. I think the Germans are real perfectionists in everything that they do, right from dropping a bomb to eradicate a whole place to producing the perfect machines, clockwork precision, functioning and design and manufacture and everything. They make everything very paka. They cannot take any, dysfunction, malfunction, or discrepancy as something sahajam karma kaunteya. It is sahajam. It is common that people don't do things perfectly. This is the real Indian attitude, right? Isn't it? Because it's given in the Bhagavad Gita too. Wow, these guys don't like quality. They don't like perfection. They just take it cool. It's okay. It's cool, man. I mean, things are like that. People don't force them too much. I mean, he's done a pretty good job. It's okay. Let's work it out like that. But you must also know that with this type of an attitude also, India was like the world's largest GDP, 28 at one point of time. Even when the Mughals had invaded India and were routing it, it was still the most prosperous country in the world. And it was having the same philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita. So it is not that this is something not up to QA. Your quality assurance is not paka. Sahajam does not mean that you accept a lesser quality. That's not the meaning of that. It's actually very humane disposition, very humane to think that, yeah, this can happen, a human quality. But what, Westerners try to do is that, well, that quality of human beings is a bad thing. They become more mechanistic. They try to make the human being a robot. And they prefer a robot over a human being because a robot is very perfect. It's very perfect. In other words, they can't deal with humanity and humaneness and personality. And sahajam karma kaunteya sajosham, that there are faults. So in other words, faults are a humane quality. It's a personal quality. And we don't need to straighten that and become so straight-edged and so paka that you stop being a human being. This is the flaw in the material world. All human beings are asked to become robotic machines and perform so perfectly. In the process of adhering to that, they lose their humaneness, they lose their, childhood, womanhood, manhood, you name it. All the hoods are lost. I call it being hoodwinked by the modern society into performing at a loss of your manhood, womanhood, childhood, or whatever it is. That makes you a human being. So Krishna is telling here, it doesn't matter, just continue to do it. The world is designed for you to be imperfect. It's not designed for you to be perfect. You become perfect when you actually realize I'm a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord Krishna, and I should actually devote myself and become a devotee, then you become 100% perfect. That is perfection. And you get gyan, you get to know who is the Supreme Lord, what's the absolute truth. That is indeed perfection. It's a waste of time to try to be perfect in this material world and try to be extolled for it and try to get some great certification for it. Rather, if we can become perfect in our sadhana, in our love of Krishna, that is indeed most valuable. Right? So Krishna is advising, doesn't matter if it's a little off here and there. You're expected to be off. And that's humanity and humaneness. You should understand that quality. Right? So Krishna in the next shloka is saying, Asakta buddhi sarvatra jitatma vigata spriha naishkarmya siddhim paramam sanyasena adhigacchati. One who is self-controlled and unattached and who disregards all material enjoyments can obtain by practice of renunciation highest perfect stage of freedom from reaction. Exactly what I was telling you now. How you should become perfect is you should become renounced, you should become detached from all the so-called material perfections. and you will reach a perfect stage of freedom from reaction. That is advocated here by Krishna. Rather than spending trying to perfect material stuff in your material situation, perfect your renunciation, perfect your detachment, perfect your stage of knowledge, and you will be in freedom from reaction. That's an amazing statement. Siddhim prapto yata brahma tatapnoti nibodhame samasenaiva kaunteya nishta jnanasya yapara. O son of Kunti, okay, let me have somebody read this. Who's read? Satyendra Hirandesa, did you read?
Yes, Maharaj, but I can read this one too.
Okay.
O son of Kunti, learn from me how one who has achieved this perfection can attain to the supreme perfectional stage, Brahman, the stage of highest knowledge, by acting in the way I shall now summarize.
Okay, so now there are three perfectional stages: Brahman realization, Paramatma realization, and Bhagavan realization. All together, they are known understanding of the absolute truth. The absolute truth is Krishna, he is speaking. The absolute truth is a personality. He is Krishna, he is speaking now. And he's saying the first perfect stage of knowledge is called Brahman. Now he's going to explain to you something amazing, which I think you should carefully hear. Brahman stage, Paramatma stage, Bhagavan stage. Three levels of confidential knowledge. One is called confidential knowledge, one is called more confidential, and another one is called most confidential. This most confidential knowledge was already expressed to you in the 9th chapter. Manmana bhava madbhakta madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishasi yuktvaivam atmanam matparayana. In the 9.34, I think, the last shloka, you will see that Krishna explained the most confidential knowledge already there. So now he's explaining confidential knowledge. Okay? Just keep an eye on this stage as it moves up. Siddhim prapto yata brahma. Oh, I already read that. Okay. Buddhaya vishuddhaya yukto dhrityatmanam niyamya cha shabdadin vishayam styaktva ragadvesho vyudhasya cha vivikta sevi laghvasi yata vakaya manasah dhyana yoga paro nityam vairagyam samupashritah ahankaram balam dharpam kamam krodam parigraham vimuchya nirmah shanto brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Highest perfectional stage is Brahman stage, the stage of highest knowledge. Brahman means truth, Brahman means spirit, Brahman stage means freedom from everything to do with matter. So that's called the Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma stage. So here, read the translation Jaya Nair of these texts 51 to 53.
Being purified by his intelligence and controlling the mind with determination, giving up the objects of sense gratification, being freed from attachment and hatred, one who lives in a secluded place, who eats little, who controls his body, mind, and power of speech, who is always in trance and who is detached, free from false ego, false strength, false pride, lust, anger, and acceptance of material things, free from false proprietorship and peaceful, such a person is certainly elevated to the position of self-realization.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so he's describing that Brahman stage. That Brahman stage person, how he is. Such a person, I'm sorry, is describing that type of a person who can be promoted to Brahman stage. He's one step before. He's qualified himself by being free from the objects of sense gratification. He's freed from attachment and hatred. He lives in a secluded place, who eats little, controls his body, mind, power, speech, everything together. He has trained himself in this way, right? That person is certainly elevated to the position of self-realization. Now, when you look at this, you say, wow, that's not something that I can do. This is too idealistic. That's what you may be thinking. So let's read that purport. Okay, I will read that purport for this instance. When one is purified by intelligence, he keeps himself in the mode of goodness. Thus one becomes the controller of the mind and is always in a trance. He is not attached to the objects of sense gratification and he is free from attachment and hatred in his activities. Such a detached person naturally prefers to live in a secluded place. He does not eat more than what he requires and he controls the activities of his body and mind. He has no false ego because he does not accept the body as himself. Nor has he a desire to make the body fat and strong by accepting so many material things. Because he has no bodily concept of life, he is not falsely proud. He is satisfied with everything that is offered to him by the grace of the Lord, and he is never angry in the absence of sense gratification. Nor does he endeavor to acquire sense objects. Thus, when he is completely free from false ego, he becomes non-attached to all material things. And that is the stage of self-realization of Brahman. That stage is called the Brahma Bhuta stage. When one is free from material conception of life, he becomes peaceful and cannot be agitated. This is described in Bhagavad Gita 270. Apuryamanam achala pratishtam samudram apaha pravishanti yadvat tadvat kama yam pravishanti sarve sashanti mapnoti nakama kami. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. Okay. Now here again you have a description of the person who is Brahman situated. Brahma, the state of Brahman, what it is. As mentioned here in the next shloka, which is a very often quoted shloka, very famous shloka, 54. Brahma bhuta prasannatma nashochati nakangshati samah sarveshu bhuteshu matbhaktim labate param. Translation, please read, Shalini.
One who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. Thank you,
Okay.
Maharaj.
Yeah. So this Brahman stage is a stage from where he can approach pure devotion. He has not yet achieved pure devotion. Okay. But this is like, I call it the 0-0 coordinate. Just about cleared the negative y-axis and you are in 0-0 coordinate. It means that you're freed of any material influence. And now you're light, you're unburdened. And na shochati na kankshati, neither hankering nor lamenting. Material life is characterized by hankering and lamentation. Prabhupada gave the example of saying in Hindi, he said, "Do Dilli ka laddu khaya hai, wo paschata hai. Jo nahi khaya hai, wo bhi paschata hai." If you know Hindi, he said that one who has eaten the famous Dilli ka laddu, he is always hankering for it. One who has not eaten it, he starts hearing about it and he also wants it. So if you have eaten and if you have not eaten also, you're in trouble because you're hankering or lamenting. So he gave this example and said, whole material life is based on this. You're either hankering for something which you want and or lamenting for something which you lost. I want to buy that BMW. I saw that guy using it. My competitor has got it. I definitely want it. I must do it. I must work very hard, make the money for it. you are hankering. Then you're lamenting that you had it once upon a time and then it slipped out of you and then I wish I had it again. You're lamenting for it. Life is made up of a series of hankering and lamentations. But in the stage of Brahman, you're free from it. In other words, it doesn't matter whether you have it or you don't have it. I have no attachment for any of these things. I've understood they're all temporary. They're all material stuff, possessions, and they don't last. And I don't feel anything, attachment or detachment or anything towards them. I'm completely neutral. This is na sochati na kankshati. Samas sarveshu bhuteshu. He sees all living entities equally. Whether he's rich or he's poor, he's tall, he's fat, he's short, he's intelligent, he's foolish. Doesn't matter. He sees everybody equally. Madbhaktim labate param. But the interesting thing is, Brahma Bhuta Prasanna Atma. He is very joyful. This is Brahman stage, you must understand. Freedom from matter, material influence, material hankerings, all that together. So, one who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed towards every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. In that state, he attains. After that, he attains. So this is not complete. This is in process. This is not the topmost goal of life. But this definitely is a great achievement. Right? So now comes the real thing. In all of Hinduism, they'll talk about this stage. They'll talk about the Brahman stage. They'll talk about the fact that Brahma Sayujya Mukti. Sayujyam, they will tell in Kerala very much. Merging into the Brahman stage. Remaining free from matter. The first basic level of mukti is all in all. That's what is the goal of life. But actually, Bhagavad Gita doesn't stop here. Krishna will go to the next stage and beyond that. Most of Hinduism will talk to you about Brahman stage. Aham Brahmasmi, I am of the quality of Brahman. But Krishna is saying, Mad Bhaktim Labate Param. Param means beyond. Beyond the situation is bhakti for me. But he's not yet spoken about that. He has said that, I am speaking this to you, right? So now read with this understanding, we can briefly read this purport. Jaya Nair, can you read the first paragraph of the purport? Anybody else who's not on video would like to read, has to at least open up his video and tell me, I like to read. Okay, go ahead, Jaya.
I like to read, Maharaj.
Okay. Yes, noted. First paragraph you read, Jaya.
The impersonalist achieving the Brahma Buddha stage, becoming one with the absolute is the last word. But for the personalist or pure devotee, one has to go still further to become engaged in pure devotional service. This means that one who is engaged in pure devotional service to Supreme Lord is already in a state of liberation called Brahma Buddha, oneness with the Absolute. Without being one with Supreme, the Absolute, one cannot render services unto him. In the absolute conception, there is no difference between the served and the servitor. Yet the distinction is there in a higher spiritual sense.
Okay, thank you. You understood that? These are technical subject matters. So, but we can understand that Brahman stage is a stage of freedom from matter. And that is the beginning of your spiritual stage. Like it's mentioned here, beyond that is devotion to Krishna. Mad Bhaktim Labate Param. So Priya, would you like to read the next paragraph?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. In the material concept of life, when one works for sense gratification, there is misery. But in the absolute world, when one is engaged in pure devotional service, there is no misery. The devotee in Krishna consciousness has nothing for which to lament or desire. Since God is full, a living entity who is engaged in God's service is in Krishna consciousness becomes also full in himself. He is just like a river cleansed of all dirty water. Because a pure devotee has no thought other than Krishna, he is naturally always joyful. He does not lament for any material loss or aspire for gain, because he is full in the service of the Lord. He has no desire for material enjoyment, because he knows that every living entity is a fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and therefore eternally a servant. He does not see in the material world someone as higher and someone as lower. Higher and lower positions are ephemeral, and a devotee has nothing to do with ephemeral appearances or disappearances. For him, stone and gold are of equal value. This is the Brahmabhuta state, and this state is attained very easily by the pure devotee. In that state of existence, the idea of becoming one with the Supreme Brahman and annihilating one's individuality becomes hellish. The idea of attaining the heavenly kingdom becomes phantasmagoria,
Phantasmagoria.
and the sense phantasmagoria, and the senses are like serpents whose poison teeth are broken. As there is no fear of a serpent with broken teeth, there is no fear from the senses when they are automatically controlled. The world is miserable for the materially infected person, but for a devotee, the entire world is as good as Vaikuntha or the spiritual sky. The highest personality in this material universe is no more significant than an ant for a devotee. Such a state can be achieved by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, who preached pure devotional service in this age.
Thank you. So, a distinction is made here between the stage of Brahma Bhuta and the stage of pure devotional service, which is further than the Brahma Bhuta stage. And the other point that is made here is a devotee, a pure devotee already engaged in the service of the Lord, is already in Brahma Bhuta stage, because he is already has to be in such a stage in order to be able to render service to the supremely pure personality of Godhead. Okay, so these two important points are highlighted here. Then comes the real bomb. After this, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschashmi tatvatah tato mam tatvato jnatva vishate tadanantaram. This is very interesting. Please read. Since Madhavi Tarun has just shown up, can you read Madhavi Tarun, the translation for text 55? Have you got the book open in front of you? You're muted. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. You're muted. Madhavi, we can't hear you. You're muted. Okay. I think, I don't know whether you're hearing us. We can't hear you because you're muted. Okay, Arunab Banerjee. Keman achen, balo.
हाँ sir, balo.
Acha, you want to read text 55?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah. Translation.
Yes, Maharaj. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and
No.
his...
Text 55 of chapter 18.
Yes, Maharaj, I am reading that only.
No, you read the translation.
Translation. Yes. One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God.
Thank you. Thank you. So after explaining Brahman situation and after saying that Mad Bhaktim Labate Param, he's saying that Brahman stage you can understand. But if you want to understand me as Bhagavan, you can do that only by Bhakti. Bhaktyamam abhijanati. I can be known and understood as a Supreme Personality of Godhead, as I am, as you see me, only by Bhakti, only by devotional service. It's a very important point to note. You can understand Brahman by all these efforts of renunciation, knowledge, austerity, penance, all that. You can come to the stage of Brahman. But if you want to know me, which is beyond Brahman, Brahman is only one aspect of me. But if you want to get to know me as a person, then you need to have loving devotion or bhakti established as a relationship with me. Only then you will know me. In full consciousness of me, and by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Now look at these statements. There's something called the kingdom of God. And in order to enter the kingdom of God, you should be qualified with full consciousness in bhakti of the Supreme Lord. That you can get. That is what is advocated by Krishna in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And this is only one stage of it. He's saying, even to get Brahman realization, you'll have to practice bhakti. And from Brahman realization, if you have already practiced bhakti, you can go ahead by practicing devotion to me, and you can realize me. Okay? To understand God as a person, and to understand God as a Brahman spread everywhere, the spiritual truth and that freedom from matter spread everywhere, that are two different things. Okay? Mostly people in Hinduism will talk to you about Brahman, Brahman, Brahman. But look at this distinction made by Krishna here. It is not over. Right till the end, he'll keep on speaking about in different stages of realization. The next we will read is the Paramatma stage of realization. Right? He will talk about his devotee in the next few shlokas. And he will urge Arjuna to be fully conscious of me and work by my grace and by relying and being sheltered by me. But he says, if out of false ego, out of ahankar, you don't listen to me, don't act according to my direction, then you will have to be misled by your own decision. You will see amazing thing. He says, anyway, you'll act according to your svabhava. He will go ahead and we will be reading all that. These are very interesting instructions because he's coming towards the end of the Gita and he's telling Arjuna there is actually not much of a situation for you. You are very well situated to make the right choice and you must make the right choice. And he gives a series of choices. You can have Brahman realization, you can have Paramatma realization, or you can directly understand me as a Supreme Lord in pure devotion. Okay? So I would suggest as a homework, please read text 55 purport. Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavan yas chashmi tatvatah tato mam tatvato jnatva vishate tat anantaram. That purport, please read, and I'll meet you next week. Okay? Is there any question or comment for the next 5 to 10 minutes? Is there any question or comment? Yes, Shalini.
That meaning of the word, Maharaj, heavenly kingdom becomes phantasmagoria, something you read that word.
Yeah.
Meaning phantasmagoria.
Phantasmagoria means something not real. Something which is not real. You have heard of this word Akasha Pushpa, right? Akasha is there, Pushpa is there, but flowers in the sky is not real. Then there's another thing called, you have heard about a rabbit and you've heard about horns. But does the rabbit have horns? You know, cow has got horns. Have you seen a rabbit with horns? So they cite these two things and say it's phantasmagoria. Oh, adu vannitu Akasha Pushpamana. In Malayalam language, they'll say that is a flowers in the sky program. It is not real. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. It's flowers in the sky, Akasha Pushpa. So that's called phantasmagoria. So in the material world, many times people make up all these things. Wow, we are going there. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. We are landing on the moon. We'll capture the moon and then we will set up a colony there. And then if you want, you can buy a residence there. And then you can, and all that. Phantasmagoria. Not going to happen. Because somebody is in charge of the moon. He'll boot you out from there. It's not your grandfather's property. Isn't it? This is phantasmagoria. Chandrayaan-3 is going to land there and the Russians are too fighting to come there. What about the Chinese? What about Americans? They're going to go there and hoist our flag. They're going to secure our area. Wow, everybody is making a beeline to the moon. That's what I mean by phantasmagoria. And this phantasmagoria was cited in 1969 when man landed on the moon and Neil Armstrong said, "One step for man and a giant leap for mankind." And all that fantastic things were said. Then afterwards, the whole moon expedition shut up. Nobody spoke about it anymore. From 1969 to now, again, they've started going to the moon. Right? And then some other phantasmagoric stuff will happen. They bought rock from the moon, or they analyzed it and found the titanium inside or gold in it, or everybody will make a gold rush. All sorts of things will happen and people will die. But the moon will remain there, people will remain here, and life will go on. That's called phantasmagoria.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Right. Any other question or comment? Which is not so phantasmagoric. Okay. So, hope to see you next week. Om Tat Sat. Good night. Hare Krishna.